Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome back to the Operation Hill 100 Hearts channel where we do what? Focus on healing humor and hot motherfucking topics. What's up, my nosy neighbors? Welcome back here with your girl. Please make sure you hit the thumbs up on this video. And if you're new to my neighborhood, come on in, sit on down and be nosy because we got some shit to catch the fuck up on. Let's rock and roll. Dear Deja, I became a mom at 14 years old and honestly didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I became a mom again at 8. I became a mom again at 18 years old. My two children have different fathers, and when I say different, I mean different. My first baby father was 4 years older than me, but acted 4 years younger than me, and got locked up as soon as the umbilical cord was cut. My second child's father was also 4 years older than me, but way more mature, so we were able to build a more solid relationship. I became a mom again with my second child's father at 22 years old, and my first child's father was released from prison that same year. I know it's a lot, so try to keep up. The ghetto. At this time, my son, the first child, is 8 years old and has been a problem child since he was 2 years old. He has been diagnosed with ADHD, but that's it. He's been to behavioral therapy, a child psychologist, mandated school counseling, etc. I assumed when his dad was released, he would assist with the caretaking of our son until I realized my son may have inherited some of these traits from him and his side of the family. My son stabbed a classmate with a pencil. He set my daughter's rabbit on fire and has been verbally abusive to his younger siblings. As you know, New York has gotten increasingly violent and dangerous, so my other two kids' father and I are looking to move down south. A part of me wants to take my oldest son because I feel like a change of environment will do him good. But I also feel like it will be separating him from his dad yet again. The other part of me wants to leave him here with his father because maybe it's time for this boy to be raised by a man, his father in particular. But I also don't want my kid to feel like I'm abandoning him. I'm at a crossroad and could use some advice. Send help. Sign, I'm not the only one that can save my son. Okay, okay. I'm gonna take a sip of my water per usual. Okay. Okay. This is very hard. And I always tell you guys, I'm like, listen, I struggle when it comes down to giving any advice in regards to parenting because I am not a parent, so most times folks can and will get offended by my opinion because they feel like you're speaking on something you have no fucking knowledge of, right? And to some degree, I agree with that, which is why I try to stay away from giving feedback on that unless I am directly asked, which is what is taking place in this moment because you guys are always writing me these letters asking me these questions about parenting, and so I'll try to get through this, right? What I always share with my Operation Hill 100 Heart participants is we have to get down to what feels good and right to you, right? We have to get down to what feels good and right to you. And I don't mean, once again, I don't mean on in a generic sense, right? Like I don't mean like generally what feels good sounds good. No. I mean digging deep to the core of who you are and what feels good to you. Right? Like I've been in plenty more situations of things that didn't feel good to me than things that did, right? And I remember when I first started the healer journey, I had to figure out if I was thinking about my feelings and having certain feelings because of my trauma and the things that I had been through in my life. And the fact of the matter is that was the case. That was the case. So when I worked through those traumas and started getting to the core of who I was, I started to look at situations and decide how I felt about them through a clear lens from at the core of who I am. Right? So my whole thing about this situation is if you were Operation Hill 100 Hearts participant, we would take your son off the table, we would take your other two kids off the table, we would take your baby fathers off the table, and we would just leave you. And on this table, you would have to lay out everything I need to know about you, everything that you've been through, what are your feelings, what are some of your character traits, who raised you, where did they raise you, what's your relationship with them people, and so on and so forth. Right? Because now once you get down to the core of who you are, and if there's any trauma there, working through those things, then you can make a sound decision for your son that you feel good about, that you know was his best interest at heart. And not just because I have my own trauma and I'm drawing from that place, right? So I'll give you an example of what I mean. Let's just say that you were a person who grew up with abandonment issues, and you still have those abandonment issues as an adult. It could be in the best interest to leave your son with his father, but because you have abandonment issues and you have not worked through that trauma, you so busy trying to hold on tight to your son because you don't want him to feel what you felt at his age because of what you went through. But you're making a horrible mistake by holding on to him when he really needs to be with his dad. Granted, that's not what I'm saying you should do. I just was using that as an example to kind of land a plane about what I meant. Which is why I would have needed you to get down to the core of who you are as an individual, so then you can now make a decision of what feels good and feels right to you. Okay, so once we did all of the work of getting down to the core of who you are and what feels good and what feels right, we would have to now sit down and do one of my favorite things I always tell you guys I have my Healing Hearts participants do, which is a pros and a cons list. We need to see a pros and a cons list. What makes this a good thing? What makes this a bad thing? And we need to do that over and over and over again until we have a sound decision about what makes sense. Because remember, this is somebody else's life. This is not a decision you making about you and your nail color. This is somebody else's life. So you have to be very, very clear on, I did this with the best intention and I wanted the best. That's the reason that I did it. So when you making that pros and cons list, you have to be 100% honest about what you feel. Is it a good idea to leave my son here? Is it a good idea to take my son with me? Right? So you have to go through the pros and cons list with a fine-tooth comb. You have to do a rough draft first. There's a number of things that you have to do with this pros and cons list, right? And after you do so, you have to talk about expectations for whatever you listed on that paper, right? So if you're saying that, oh, there's a pro of me taking my son down south because he needs a change of environment, then what is the expectation when he gets there? That now he's seeing trees instead of seeing fucking leaves? Like what is the expectation when he gets there? What is going to happen now that, at least what would you anticipate happening now that I have given my son a change of environment, since I said on this list that was a good thing? So what was the expectation? And now once you say, okay, I plan on giving my son a change of environment because down here he can learn what it looks like to have conflict resolution skills, what it looks like to be at peace, as opposed to him having to fight and have all these issues in New York. So now when you get down there, right, because remember we talked about making that pros and cons list and then go over the expectations. The next thing that you need to do is make sure that whatever you're deciding, you standing 10 toes down on that shit. You A-town stomping on it. Because you're doing this for the best interest of your child. You have to see it all the way through. You have to see it all the way through. And now use the other side of it, which is, I'm sorry, you guys. Okay. Which is, let's just say you decide to let your son stay with his dad, right? It cannot be as soon as he call and say, oh, mom, I wanted to wear my blue socks. My dad would let me wear them. He yelled at me. I want to come with you. You got to you have to stand 10 toes down in whatever decision you made. He's not with his father because you just didn't want to be bothered. You made a pros and cons list, and it looked like on that list, him being with his dad is in the best interest of your son. So you can't go folding when things don't go his way or his dad's way. You see what I mean? And again, these are not decisions that I'm telling you to make. I'm just using these as examples so I can land the plane about what I'm asking you to do, which is number one, you have to make sure you make the pros and cons list. You have to make that list. Right? But remember what I said before even making the list, you have to scale all the way back and now think about who am I at the core of self? You know what I'm saying? Who are you? Like, and I get it, it's very, very hard. It's extremely it's damn near impossible for people to dig deep because there's a lot of pain when we all dig deep, and there's a lot of things that we've been through that most of us don't talk about. Most of us try to forget. You know what I'm saying? Most of us are angry about. So digging deep is hard. But right now we're trying to figure out the best thing for your child. So no matter how hard it is, you have to do it. So now, once again, you digging deep, you figuring out your trauma. Oh, I went through this when I was younger, so it caused me to be like this. I'll give you guys an example of what I mean when I dug deep, right? Ever since, like, I want to say, I'll say high school, because that's probably as far back as I remember. I'll say high school, right? I had stopped reaching for things, right? I had stopped reaching for things. So say like a teacher would come to me. I was always in the honors program. And a teacher would come to me and be like, yo, you're very smart. I think you should apply for so-and-so scholarship, right? And I'll be like, okay, okay them to death. When they walk off, I'm like, bitch, I'm not doing that shit. And in my mind, the reason why I wasn't doing it is because I kept saying to myself, what if I don't get it? So I spent, as far back as I can remember from high school, I spent from teenage, I spent my teenage life all the way up until I started the healing journey in 2012, saying to myself every time I was presented with an opportunity, every time somebody asked me, tried to push me to do something to motivate me, from losing weight to anything, right? I would just always say to myself, what if it doesn't happen? Right? And every time I said that to myself, I more so was on the side of it not happening. So I wasn't reaching for it. So it made no sense for me to try out for this and apply to that because it might not happen. So fuck it, I'm not going to do it. Anywho, fast forward, right? As I started getting older and realizing all of the things that I refuse to reach for because I keep telling myself it won't happen for me, on the healing journey, I had to examine, what is that? What is that voice that keeps telling you, even though you can't see the future, and I'm pretty sure that voice can't either, what is that little voice that always tells you that things are not going to happen for you? Where does that come? What is that, right? And this is what I realized. When I was younger, right, my parents were on drugs, right? God bless. Thank you, Jesus. My mom is 100 years clean. So, we got past that time in our life. And I'm not telling a story that she has not told herself, right? But one of the things that my mom would do was when we were younger, she would make a promise to me and then renege on the promise. So it would be like, oh, Khadija, I'm going to come get you from school early. Now, again, I love spending time with my mom, even up until this day. I was just with my mom last night. So for me, that means a lot to me. That may not mean anything to anybody else, but it means a lot to me that you're going to take me out of school when nobody else is home and I'm going to have your undivided attention. It's just going to be me and you. That meant something to me. So say she said that but didn't do it, right? It made me build such a fucking traumatic relationship with disappointment. I hated being disappointed. Hated it, right? So because of that, I had now told myself, in order for me to not have that feeling, I can never get hype or anticipate something happening, because if it doesn't, then I don't want to be what I hate to be, which is disappointed. So because of that, it would be like when people would come to me and say, oh, you should try this, you should do that. Maybe I ain't even gonna do that shit because it ain't gonna happen, right? And I stopped reaching. And I spent years, like I said, in 2012, I turned 30 years old. So that means I spent at least 15 years living in that space of not reaching it and not trying and not making the attempt because I was so afraid to be disappointed. And that relationship with disappointment is what kept me stagnant for 15 or more years of my life. Right? But I couldn't see that before I started the healing journey. So I said all that to say, when you're trying to figure out what it is at the core of you, my dear, this is the type of digging deep that you have to do. And I remember when I realized that this was about a fucking 8-year-old who felt disappointed because I didn't get picked up early. I remember I cried. I cried. Because I was like, wow, look at how, Khadijah, you were operating from the space of an 8-year-old. You know what I'm saying? But I was functioning that way at 25 because I had not dealt with my trauma, because I had not dug deep. So when you're trying to make this decision about your son, this is going to be a lot about who you are, because then that helps you contribute to being a good parent and raising your son the way you would like to see them raised and happy. So my dear, we got to set it off with, you need to dig deep. You need to dig deep. You need to dig deep. After you dig deep, you need to make that pros and that cons list. After you make that pros and that cons list, you need to set them expectations about what's going to happen with everything that you placed on that list. And after you set them expectations, you need to stand 10 toes down, solid, and what the fuck you want to see happen with your baby. Right? But again, this is only feedback that I'm able to give you from the information I was given in the letter, which is very limited because it's only one letter. Come get your Operation Heal 100 Heart session. Come get your Operation Heal 100 Heart session, because I want to see you make the best decision, if for nobody else, your freaking kid, because I know how important it is for you to be a good mom and for you to make good decisions for your baby. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, I hope I was able to land a plane. I tried. I hope that I didn't go too far off on a tangent, and I was able to get you guys to see the connection that I was making to try to help this mother out. In any event, ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy your day. Share, comment, like, subscribe. Share, comment, like, subscribe. Y'all some nosy motherfuckers, so welcome to the neighborhood. Some lit at sixes are coming. I want to tell you guys, the reason why my recording time was so limited before, because from September up until literally last Thursday, I had something to do every Tuesday and Thursday evening starting at 6 o'clock. That stopped last Thursday. So I have more free time to come here and gossip with y'all nosy motherfuckers, to read these dear deeds and save people's life. And y'all know what I love to do. And we are now in Aquarius season. It's up and it's stuck. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy your day, and thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye.